Before we begin, I want to mention that we had some technical difficulties with the audio in the short introduction, which was recorded at a skating rink. But stay tuned for the full interview where the sound is crystal clear with a great conversation you don't want to miss. Hey, this is Stef, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast. Hello everyone, I'm Stef Vachon.
And I'm Eric Radford, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast.
Finally loving and respecting ourselves. This is a podcast for the 2S LGBTQI plus community, along with our friends, allies, and all human beings. So if you're only listening to us, I'm here with Eric Radford, Olympic medalist in figure skating. We just had a short skating session together, and we're going to have some videos on social media.
Yeah, make sure you check them out.
Eric, what do you think? We get on the ice and we have a little chat.
Let's do it.
Eric, thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, Eric, you are a world champion, an Olympic medalist, you play piano, and you write and compose music. Is there anything that you cannot do?
I suck at golf. I had a fear that if I was ever invited to like one of those charity golf events that I would make a fool of myself. So eventually at some point I'm going to need to spend some time on a driving range and learn to actually hit a golf ball.
And anything else about your personal life?
When it comes to things that I can't do, I should also probably take a cooking class.
So do I.
I can follow a recipe well enough. When you watch somebody who's just sort of natural in the kitchen and they're in their element and they sort of glide from here to there and they can carry on a conversation and they make it look really easy. Maybe in the same way that, you watch high level figure skaters make their sport look easy. But when I'm in the kitchen, it is stressful. I feel like I'm doing everything wrong and I can't seem to time everything properly. And so, yeah, there's lots of stuff that I can't do.
Eric, you were born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. Did you overcome any challenges during your childhood?
Well, while I was born in Winnipeg, I would say that I grew up I consider my hometown to be Red Lake, Ontario. It's about a 45-minute flight from Winnipeg, and it was just kind of by chance that I was born in Winnipeg. There was definitely a lot of challenges growing up in a small northern community, especially as the only male figure skater.
Mm-hmm.
I dealt with a lot of bullying, a lot of teasing, a lot of name calling, some physical bullying as well. And, when I look back at it, there's one aspect of it that I think that, made me stronger because I was resilient and I sort of persevered through it. But there's another aspect of it that when I look back and more recently, I've realized it had a lasting impact, almost kind of like a trauma.
Mm.
And was something that I've had to work through more recently, and but at the same time I also had a lot of support coming from in my hometown, and the people that supported me when I first started to skating supported me through my entire skating career and probably still support me in my professional career now. And each time I've gone back up there, I've just felt the love and support from the community and from my friends, and from my first skating coach is still up there, and I still get to go up and see her, and we still reminisce about the good old days, about the 17-hour car ride to the competitions. But I do think that things have changed, and if in today's day and age and social climate, and I would say sort of raised awareness to the LGBTQ plus community,
Mm-hmm.
that I probably wouldn't have dealt with as many of those challenges as I did back in, when I was a kid.
Well, that's great that you had support from your own family too, which
Yeah.
I'm sure it really helped.
Yes, most definitely.
So you came out publicly as gay right at the peak of your career. How was that?
I actually had the opportunity to come out earlier. I had the opportunity, I was speaking with a group in the United States, and they had contacted me and said that they think that it could have a really big impact if I came up before the Olympics in 2014. But those Olympics were in Russia, and as you probably remember, there was a lot of controversy around their anti-LGBTQ laws at that time. And after discussing it with this group, they kind of convinced me that this is about something bigger than myself. It's something about bigger than skating. And when I told my parents, I said that I'm planning to do this. It was the very first time where they've always just unconditionally supported me in all my all the decisions that led me to that point. And this is the first time where they said, we don't think that that's a good idea. And they think they were genuinely concerned for my safety.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're in a foreign country, you're at their sort of whim. And so, but beyond all of that, after thinking about it a little bit more, I realized that I didn't want my first Olympic Games to be about my sexuality. I wanted to be about my athletic ability and everything that it took to make it to my
Mm-hmm.
first Olympics. And I wanted it to be about those moments out on the ice. And so I decided not to. And I remember just feeling like I was a coward or that I was taking the easy way out. But in hindsight, I think that coming out during that, undefeated season that Megan and I were having in that 2014-15 season, I think it was much more effective. And, the Olympics is a big stage, but stories are happening like every 10 minutes. And so, at that Olympics, I was in seventh place, and it'd be great. Like, oh, seventh place finisher, comes out. I think that it probably could have been powerful, but I think that doing it at the peak of, this incredible season that Megan and I were having was probably more effective in hindsight. And also that season, when I look back at it, after making our first Olympics and Megan and I deciding to continue to go on, there was a shift within us as a team on the ice where we were skating for ourselves for the first time, rather than trying to appease what we thought the judges wanted or what everybody else wanted us to do. And along with that feeling on the ice, skating wise, I was feeling more with just settled and confident with myself as a
Mm-hmm.
person. And I felt that it was a better time for me to be able to tell my story. I felt more at ease. I felt more ready to do that. I think that's probably another, part of the reason that I was able to do it then and why I chose to come out then.
So, Eric, how do you define self-love and self-acceptance in your own life?
That's a very good question. And, since I retired in 2022, I really did a deep dive within myself to try and really get to know who I am. And now in hindsight, I I didn't even realize it, but I didn't really know who I was because I had been skating since the time I was 8 until I retired when I was 37. So almost 30 years of doing the same thing. And that doesn't really leave a lot of time of getting to know yourself
Yeah.
or having a lot of experience outside of your sport and your identity as an athlete and my identity as a skater. And I realized that I did have trauma from being bullied when I was younger, trauma from, psychological abuse from one of my coaches, and becoming aware of these things and then realizing how they were actually affecting how I was feeling out in like the real world and out
Yeah.
on sport and other aspects of that had served me really well in sport, but were no longer serving me well out in the real world. Thinking like I'm never doing enough, I'm not enough. And that was like the driving force of me always pushing myself beyond my own limits to try and achieve the highest level in skating. That doesn't serve you well when you're not trying to win the Olympics and you're just, kind of back in, the real world.
I was talking with a skating friend I was saying how skating made me into this perfectionist or too hard on myself. She said, I don't think it's skating that makes you do that. I think skating or high level sports attracts people like us. What would you say about that?
I think that it could be a little bit of both, a little bit of
Mm,
A and B, because skating is a judged sport and there aren't very many like that, and you can probably take similarities between professional dancers, ballet dancers, where there's this very restricted like version of what is considered to be like the perfection,
mm,
graceful, elegant. There's just like this personified idea of like the ideal skater, and that has like I think changed and evolved since let's say the early 90s and early 2000s. But I think that being in that judge sport creates this idea that you have to be a certain way at all times, and it doesn't leave a lot of space for you to just truly be yourself. And I think that was part of my journey into like self-love and self-acceptance was just letting go of that and realizing that that is not real. That is just this idea that's maybe kind of thrust upon us in the skating world. And then when you get removed from it, you really see it clearly. You get removed and you have a bird's eye view of what your experience was, and you realize that, oh, that wasn't real.
mm.
Like, sure, maybe I needed to act that way for the judges, or because I thought that's what I needed to do for the judges to like want to give me the highest marks. But that it doesn't, none of it has any like true effect in the real world.
Can you share one of your toughest challenges that you've ever faced?
I mean, skating wise, one of the toughest competitions that comes to mind for me was the 2017 World Championships. And, after Megan and I had won 2 consecutive World Championships, and trying to find new motivation was just really challenging. And it was the first time I was starting to feel that really like that big flame to be the best and to keep pushing was starting to, it wasn't giving me the same energy that it was before. And I was trying to find a new way of being motivated. And this also tied in with an injury. And I didn't know it at the time, but during the championships, I had a herniated disc. And it was preventing the nerve in my hip flexor and my abductor muscles from firing properly. And on the warm up of the short program, I was trying to do my triplets and my legs would fly apart in the air. And I was landing like forwards, totally disoriented on my back. Luckily, Megan really stepped up, and in like that day of the practice, we changed it from the Lutz to the toe. We hadn't done it in months, and then we went out and we had a decent skate. But before the lawn program, I was really scared. I didn't believe that I could do it. I would go out and like after just a few crossovers, it like the muscles would feel like if you had just run a marathon. They weren't firing, and
Mm,
I was just scared that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I had kind of made a decision before. I was like, I have to withdraw. I can't. And it was Bruno, our coach at the time, who was like, go out and try. If you can't do it and you have to stop, it's okay. But at least go out and try. And he really helped me push through my fear. And we went out and we were able to come 7th. And in doing so, we qualified 3 teams for the Olympics the next season. And if I had pulled out, one of those teams wouldn't have been able to go. And I remember, one of them expressing their thankfulness to me for
mm.
doing that. Unfortunately, after that competition, I felt like I had gone out and performed a miracle, but I think, my skating partner at the time, she was just really disappointed that we went from, being world champions to 7th place. And I didn't feel a lot of compassion for her in that time. And that really put a strain. And so along with like physically it being one of the most difficult competitions, it then became very emotionally and psychologically very difficult as well. But we were able to kind of push through, and then we ended up having a great final season together in 2018. But yeah, skating wise, that was definitely one of the most challenging on many levels. And I was very thankful to have, my family was there once again supporting me, and for Bruno's support in that key moment. And, allowed us to still have, seventh in the world. It's not that bad. It wasn't too bad of a competition considering.
Right. On a personal level, was there anything that you would like to share?
I think on a personal level, one of the most challenging things has been the transition out of sport. Spending 30 years doing the same thing, your identity is all wrapped up into it, even if you think that it's not. And trying to move forward and figure out what's going to come next was way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And, I'm one of the lucky ones in here in Canada. We are very lucky as athletes that the COC has a lot of resources in place to help us with that transition. I talk to other skaters from around the world, and you're done and it's like, okay, see ya, and then you're on your own and you have to figure out the rest of your life. And that is hard, especially if I'm 37 and I was retiring out of sport. And, by 37, my friends who are the same age, they've been in careers for 10 years already. And I'm just starting as if like I'm getting out of university. So that was extremely challenging on many levels. And I do think that, and I know that, the governing bodies of skating around the world have started to pay more attention. And I'm very happy and thankful that is finally happening, because, as an athlete, you don't have time you have to be so focused on the moment, and you have such a short window of time to capitalize and be the best, that it's really extremely difficult without help to start planning a future while you're in that moment.
What are some misconceptions people might have about you or your journey?
This is a great question, and I never really got to talk about it very much, but I think that when I came back with Vanessa, people who don't know me just sort of jumped on a bandwagon and thought that I was coming back for just because I wanted more glory, or I haven't had enough, or whatever it might be. But it really wasn't that at all. For me, I saw it as the universe was offering me this incredible opportunity to potentially maybe go back to another Olympics and to skate in a different way that I couldn't before. Megan and I, we were a technical team. We were never that team that everybody was like, oh, they're beautiful. They're the classic Russian style, balletic, elegant team. We weren't. And we never tried to be. And what we accomplished was incredible. We moved the needle in pair skating and performed like at a higher technical level than had ever been done before. Being the first and only team to land a throw quad at the Olympics, and with the side-by-side triple jumps. And it was, we accomplished incredible things. And at that time when, Megan was starting her family and expressed no interest in coming back, and I had this opportunity to skate with Vanessa, who we had incredible connection. We had an incredible line and match on the ice. I wasn't about to pass up an incredible and beautiful opportunity for anything. And I don't think anybody else would either. And so I think that, people can assume and judge all they want. They don't know me. But I think it was actually pretty incredible to see how far people can assume about you having never met you. Like, I'm a terrible person because I followed my dream of coming back and skating with Vanessa, which was one of the best years of my life that I would not have traded for anything. Yeah, I think it still kind of boggles my mind, but that's social media, and that's the way that people are. So
congratulations for doing so.
Yeah, I have no regrets. And to this day, skating with Vanessa, I absolutely love, and I'm about to start a tour with her, and I wouldn't change anything for it.
What is the key message you would like to leave with our listeners today?
That's another really good question. I think a key message, and this is really just based on my own experience and my own recent experience of, I think, really finding myself and coming to really truly love myself and the way that I want to live my life and things that I've learned. And I started working with a therapist for the first time ever in my life after I retired, and I went and did ayahuasca down in Costa Rica, and it really changed how I see things. And it kind of brings me back to I see these things pop up on Instagram once in a while where, when people are at the end of their lives, what their most common regrets are. And the biggest one is, I wish I had the courage to live my life the way I truly wanted to. And at this point in my life, it's something I observe a lot and I see in other people is afraid to take that leap, afraid to pursue their art, afraid to go and ask that person that they really like, for a date. And I think that we all live with this false sense that we're going to live forever. And I think that it's just so important to do what you want when you like now, because you don't know if you have tomorrow. And I know it sounds cliche and it even sounds maybe like kind of hippie-ish or something, but it has really it's changed the way I feel daily by kind of living that way. And I've seen people make those changes and how it lights them up and how it changes their life. So I guess for the listeners, I just want to spread that message too, because I think that it has the potential just to really make one's life richer, more full, and happier.
Well, good for you for being aware of this, being so young, because a lot of people will go through their whole life, like you said, not doing it. So,
well, they say life starts at 40, and it took me 40 years to learn it. So I guess 40 is still pretty young, though. But I wish I could have known all this earlier. They say hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, my dad used to say, I wish I would have your age and have the mind that I have right now. And I would not understand, but I totally understand now today. Yeah, that's great. For my last question, with everything you've accomplished, how do you stay so humble and grounded?
I've been very lucky that I have incredible friends and such a supportive family. And, no matter what I ever achieved, they always made sure that my feet stayed on the ground. And I've always been, I think I'm a bit more of like a quiet, introverted person anyway. And I genuinely, at my deepest level, like I really like sharing my success. I like bringing my medals to clubs and seeing the kids like light up when they get to see them. And I always find it funny when, I would have my medal and somebody would be like, oh no, like I can't touch it. I was like, no, like, put it on, wear it, like feel what that feels like, and yeah, I just genuinely like to share that feeling. And it's probably, just my parents always raised me to, stay humble. And maybe it's partly being Canadian too. I think it's part of our society to be humble and kind of quiet. And so maybe it's just a combination of those.
Well, just for you to accept to come and skate with me was incredible. I really thank you for it. It was a lot of fun. And we'll be following you with everything you're doing next. And thank you so much for being with us today.
No, thank you.
Good luck for all the projects that you'll be doing.
Thank you so much.
Merci, Eric.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Thank you, Eric, for being such a generous and kind-hearted person. Your humility, grounded nature, and down-to-earth attitude make you even more lovable. It was truly a privilege to have you on the podcast and to share a part of your journey with everyone. Most importantly, I can officially check on my list that I got to meet and skate with you. That makes it even more special to me. Thank you, Eric. Everyone, I'm always looking for guests to interview for the Together Moving Forward podcast. I want to showcase everyone from our community without exception. And I want as many people as possible from around the world to join me and be a part of this. So I want you. If you have suggestions or think that you can contribute something meaningful and give back to our community, please reach out. Visit our website at togethermovingforwardpodcast.com and send me an email now. My dear friends, it's already time to say au revoir just for now. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate everyone for being here and being a part of this journey. See you next Wednesday for another episode of the Together Moving Forward podcast, where we explore fresh perspective and push the boundaries of what's possible together. Everybody, share this podcast and spread the good news. Solidarity beats hate. The more we unite, the stronger we become. Because at the end of the day, we are all equally human and we all deserve the same rights. One last thing before I go. Put your hand on your heart. Yes, you and me all together, and repeat after me. I am worthy of all the good things life has to offer. Yep. I am worthy of all the good things that life has to offer. My dear friends, see you next week. Ciao.